Hello everybody and welcome back to another Blender Made Easy tutorial. Today we're going to be creating a Marvel intro effect using Blender 2.8 and the new render engine Eevee. Now how we're going to do this is we're going to be creating a big image full of lots of different small images and then UV unwrapping that onto some text and animating the texture coordinate. Now if you don't know what exactly I'm talking about, don't worry, we'll get into it. Now the first thing that we need to do is find a bunch of images and save them to your hard drive. Now what you can do is go over to Google and type in comic pages and then just find a bunch of images. Like this one looks pretty cool, there's some Iron Man, there's a Spider-Man one right here. Just grab a bunch of images and save them, or you can do something cool and use your own renders that you've previously done using Blender. So right here I have 50 images that I've rendered out. Some of these are from tutorials, but most of them are original. So I'm going to be using my own renders and animating those to go over the text. So how we're going to combine all of the images together is we're going to be using Photoshop or GIMP. So GIMP is linked down in the description. It's a free editing software, but if you have Photoshop, that works too, so go ahead and open that. If you want to skip this step and jump right into Blender, there's a link down in the description to download a big image that we can use, or if you want to create your own, we can go ahead and do that. So go up to File and click on New. We're going to be setting the size of this to 2500 by 8500. Once you do that, just hit Create and it will open up a new image. You can also make sure the background is set to black. You can unlock this layer by clicking on that little lock button. And now let's import all of our images from the folder. So here I have 50 images. So what I'm going to do is press Ctrl A to select everything and just drag them over. Now most of these images are 1920 by 1080, but it doesn't really matter the size, you just want everything on this project right here. So just press enter a bunch of times until all of the images are placed. Once all of the images are ready to go, what we're going to do is group them together. So over in the layers panel, I'm going to scroll down all the way to the bottom. Holding shift, I'm going to click on this bottom layer and then hit Ctrl G. So now all of the images that we just placed are in this layer and we can turn them off and on. Next, let's move it up to the top and scale them down. So press V for the move tool. We'll drag this up right about there. I'll zoom in a little bit and then I'm going to scale this down. So press Ctrl T and scale it down. You want to make sure this is about a third of the width across. So probably around there, maybe a little bit more. And we'll fine tune this in just a second. Once you do that, press enter and it will place the images, and we'll zoom in a little bit more. Then press V for the move tool. I'm going to hold Control and click on this image, and then I'm just going to move it over to the side. Right there looks good. Then I'm going to hit Control again, click on this image, and then move it over to this side. So now that it's snapped over, we can actually grab the entire group one more time and scale it down. So press Control T and scale it down till it's right on that side right there. So it just touches that. You're going to want 3 images across. Then press enter, and then we're good to go. Now that we've done that, we can go ahead and start placing our images, and you're going to want to stagger the images. So for example, if I click on this image, I'll just drag it down to the bottom right here in this corner. Then I'll grab this image, I'm going to hold Control, left click to select that one, drag it down, and place it here. And just keep doing this. I'm going to grab this one and place it down here. And you're going to want to stagger these. So what I'll do is I might go halfway into the ground right here, and this one I might go up a little bit or somewhere around there, just so they're not at an even plane. This just makes it look a little bit better once we do the rendering in Blender. So just stagger them and make them a little bit random. So go ahead and start placing the images. Just grab them, place them right where you need to, and then just work your way up. Now this is a little bit tedious, so what I'm going to do is just fast forward this part and you can watch how I place the images, and once it's done we'll jump into Blender. Once you've reached the top right here and you have some extra space, what you can do is just find a random render and then just duplicate it and put it up top here. What I'm going to do is select this layer, holding down Alt, I'm going to left click and drag this up and just place it in this corner. So right about there looks good. and there we go. And I might grab one more, so let's say this portal gun right here. I'll click on this layer, Alt left click, drag up, and then I'll place it in this top corner right here. And there we go. So we have our big image, and we can see all of the images are right here. Now let's save this image and then jump into Blender. So to save an image, go up to File and click on Save As. I'm just going to save it as a PNG right here. I'll put it in Tutorial, and then I'll just call it Big Image. There we go. And then click OK. Now that we've done that, let's go ahead and jump into Blender, and we can continue on with the tutorial. Over in Blender, let's go ahead and delete this default cube, then press Shift A and add in some text. With this text, you can type in whatever you want, so I'm just going to type in the word Blender just to make it simple, then press Tab to go back into object mode. Then let's rotate it up so it's standing, so press R, X, 90, and then Enter. And then what we can do is give this a font, because right now the default font that Blender has is pretty bad and it does not look that good. So go over to the Object Data panel and then open up the font section and then click on this little button and then navigate to where your fonts are and then pick one. The one that I'll be using is called Marvel Regular. This one just looks similar to the Marvel font. A link is down in the description if you want to go grab that. Then hit Open Font. And this is what it looks like. Now it's pretty good, and let's give this some depth though. So what I'll do is I'll just go over to the geometry section and extrude this up by maybe 0.1 or so, nothing too crazy, 0.1. Now that we've done that, let's go ahead and convert our text right here to a mesh. Now there used to be a shortcut for this, but they removed that, and now what you need to do is press F3 and type in the word convert, and then you can click on convert to. Once you do that, click on convert mesh from metasurf text. And now if we go into edit mode, we can see our text now has vertices. Now let's add in a new material. So go ahead and make sure you have your text selected, go over to the material tab, and then click new. Let's go ahead and open up a new window so we can have the node editor. Go over here, click on this menu, and click on shader editor. Press N to close off that panel, and now let's import our image. So press Shift A, go to texture, and then image texture. Take the color output and put it into the base color, and then click open. Navigate to where you saved your image. Let's see, mine is right here, big image, and then go open. Now if we go into look dev, we can see what this looks like. It does not look that good, so now we need to UV unwrap this. To do that, I'm going to go into front view, go into edit mode, then click on U and go project from view. And that looks pretty good so far, but you might notice that on the sides of the text, it's completely stretched out. To fix that, what we're going to do is come over to the B right here, go into edit mode. I'm going to select one of the edges right here. It doesn't really matter where, just one of the edges. Then click Control E and go mark seam. Then go into face select mode. Holding down Alt will select that entire ring, and then go U, unwrap. And there we can go. We can see our images on the side of our text. So we need to do that exact same thing over every single letter. So I'll do it one more time so you can see it. Go into edit mode, make sure you're in vertice select mode, click on one of these vertices, make sure you alt click so it selects that ring right there, then press Control E and go mark seam. Go back into face select mode, alt, right or left click depending on what you have your selection, then go U and unwrap. And there we go, we can see our images are right here. Now this is a little bit small, so what I'll do is I'll open up the UV image editor, go into UV image editor, I'll go into edit mode. With this selected, I'll just scale it down so it's a little bit bigger and the images are bigger just like that. So go ahead and do that for all of these letters right here. I'll fast forward this part to speed it up a little bit, and then we can continue. Okay, all of the letters are properly UV unwrapped, and now what I'll do is go into front view, go into edit mode, press A to deselect, then B for box select, and draw a box around this front face. And we can see the UV map is over on the right side. I'll scale this up till it matches the edges, just like that. I'll scale it down a little bit, place it right in the middle, so the R and the B are right on the edges of our image, just like that. There we go, and if we go back into object mode, we can see what it looks like. Not too bad. Okay, the UV map is done. Let's go ahead and jump back over to the material editor. So go to this menu, shader editor, and now we can continue making our material. What I'll do now is press Shift A, go to input, and then texture coordinate. Place that here. Then press Shift A, go to vector, and then mapping. Take the UV, plug it into the vector, and then the vector into the vector of the image texture. And now if we were to move the Y along the location, it'll move the images. So if I hold Shift, we can see it's scrolling down, or the side of it is scrolling up, and it's looking pretty cool. We're going to be animating this value. So to do that, I'm going to set the end frame to 400 and enter, and then hovering over the location, I'm going to hit the I key. Next, hit this button right here to snap all the way to the end, frame 400, set the Y to -5 and then enter, and then hit I one more time. So over 400 frames, this is going to go from 0 to -5. If we play this, we can see what it looks like. There we go, we can see our images are moving around just like that. That's looking pretty cool, but there's a couple issues with this animation. Let's come up to this menu and go to the graph editor. And if we select actually first we have to make sure we have our mapping node selected, so make sure you select your mapping node, then go back to the graph editor and then open up the material, this one, and then select the Y location. This is currently our animation. It starts out slow, it speeds up, and then it slows down at the end. This is not what we want. We want this to be a linear line, so to fix that, hit T and then click on linear. Now if we play this, it's a constant rate, but it still does not look that good. So what we're going to do is press the N key and go over to the modifiers. If we click add modifier, we can see there's a lot of different modifiers we can add. Noise will just make it all noisy and bumpy, but the one that we're going to be adding is called step interpolation. If we click on this and then we zoom in onto our timeline right here, we can see that our line has now become a bunch of steps. If we play this, it's going to give it this effect. We're going to be setting the step size to 4 and then enter. And then if we play this one more time, now we're starting to get that Marvel effect of like the snapping images and then moving around just like that. And that's looking pretty cool. Not too bad. Now if we go back over to our material view, we can continue modifying this and tweaking it to our like. The next thing I'll do is add in a couple mix nodes and change the color of our text right here and make every single image have like an orange hue to it. Because if we look at the Marvel logo, or the Marvel intro I mean, it has like an orange or reddish glow over all of the comics. So we're going to replicate that. So press Shift A, go to color, and then mix RGB. Place that right here. For this mix node, we're going to select the color and give it a hex number. If I come over here, I'm going to press Ctrl V of BC6E00. And this is just an orange color, and we can see it over on the left side. We're going to be setting this to color, so scroll down until you see color right here. And this will just give all of the images a hue of this orange color. Set the factor all the way up to 0.9, so we can see the effect that it's going for on the left right here. That's starting to look pretty cool, but there's a couple more things I want to do. So the next one that I'll be adding is just an overall color. So come over here, add it right there, Shift D it, and set this to mix, and then set the factor of this to 0.3. There we go. And then one more node, we'll Shift D this and place it here. We're going to be animating this mix node. We're going to be setting the factor to 0, and then over a course of time, it's going to go from 0 all the way to 1, and then it's just going to be a solid orange color. So make sure this is set to 0. Now let's go to frame 230, so come over here and type in 230, and then enter. While hovering over the factor value, hit the I key, and then let's go to frame 290, set the factor all the way up to 1, and then hit the I key one more time. So over the course of 60 frames, it's going to go from 0 to 1, and we can see the effect over on this left side. And there we go. So it slowly fades, the images start to fade out, and then the orange comes through. There we go, that's looking pretty cool. And then over in the principled shader, we're going to be setting the metallic all the way up to 0.7. The roughness, we're going to be setting all the way to 0, and maybe a little bit of clear coat. And there we go, we can see what it's looking like. Not too bad. Next, let's add in a background. So press Shift A, go to Mesh, and then Plane. Rotate this plane 90 degrees, so hit R, X, 90, and then Enter, and then go into Front View. Scale the plane up pretty big until it reaches this side, and then also make sure that it's not peeking through here. So I'll press G, Y, and drag it backwards until it's just barely touching the text, just like that. And there we go. For the material for the plane, I'm also going to select that orange color, except this time I'm going to duplicate this material and then change the color over here to a blue. So the first thing that I'll do is just select all of these color mix nodes, get rid of them, take the color and plug it into the top input of this animated mix node. We'll place it there, and then set the color to a blue color. So the hex value that we'll be using, if you want to just copy me, is 064979. And we can see what it's looking like, just like that. Now we need to go over to frame 230 and set the factor of this to 0.95, and then hit the I key. And so over 60 frames, it's going to go from 0.95 all the way to just 1, where it's just going to be completely blue. The reason why I'm using the blue color and the orange color is because the Blender logo has the orange and the blue, and so I think this will look pretty cool with those two colors, and the text saying Blender. Okay, we are done with the node editor. Let's go ahead and close out this window, and then we'll add in some lighting. For the lighting in the scene, I grabbed the lamp that was already there and I changed it to a sun lamp with a strength of 10. Rotate it into place and make sure contact shadows is turned on, and then duplicate the lamp and then place it over on the left with a strength of 4. Also make sure contact shadows is on with that one as well. Another thing that we can do is go over to the render settings. Underneath the color management, I'm going to set the look to high contrast. And this will just give the overall look of our scene some nice contrast, and I think that looks pretty good. Okay, to animate the camera, what we're going to do is go into camera view by pressing 0 on our number pad, and it will snap to camera view, and then I'll select it. We'll zoom in right on the top left of our text right here, not that much. Right here, we'll go up a little bit, rotate it this way, and then just place it so the top half of the B right here is just in the frame, just about there. Looks pretty good. Make sure you're on frame 1, and then hit the I key and go location, rotation. Next, go to frame 100, so go to frame 100 down here, and then we're going to be moving the camera down to the bottom of the L, so right about here. We'll rotate it this way a little bit, press G, X, and move it, then hit the I key and go location, rotation. Next, let's go to frame 170, so type in 170. We'll go right about here, right into the middle of the E and the N. I'll rotate it upwards, so double tap R, rotate it up, press G, middle mouse button to drag it back a little bit, so right about there. Hit the I key, location, rotation. Go to frame 230. Rotate it one more time, bring it back so all of the text is in the view. Rotate it, or bring it down a little bit, G, Z, R, X, rotate it up. Hit the I key, location, rotation. Then at frame 300, we'll go back even further. And so this is going to be like our final position of the camera. So right about here looks good. You're also going to want to go into front view by pressing 1 on the number pad and then go Control-Alt-0. And this will just snap the camera to be straight on. We'll move it up a little bit, place it here or so. That looks good. This is going to be the full frame. I, location, rotation. And then finally at frame 400, the camera is just going to slowly be moving backwards, so I'll just drag it back just slightly, then go I, location, rotation. Let's go ahead and hit the backspace and then go spacebar to see what our text and our animation looks like. It's looking pretty good so far. We can see it moving into place, and then it slowly goes backwards, just like that. Not too bad. Okay, our animation is ready to render. What we're going to do now is render this out, and then we'll jump back into Blender. We'll render another short animation that's only about 150 frames. This is going to be just the flat text, because if we look at the Marvel logo one more time, you'll notice that once it has just become a solid color, it slowly fades back, and then it becomes just 2D text. So let's go ahead and render this out, and then we'll do another animation and render the flat text. So go ahead, go over to the output section, click on the output, and then select where you want your animation to go to. I'll go here, go to renders, and then I'll just type in 3D text, there we go, and then accept. And then I'm also going to change this to a movie file, and then I'll go encoding and set this to MP4. Make sure the output quality is set to high, and then go up to render and then click on render animation. Normally I would change this to PNG and render it out, but since Eevee is very fast at rendering, I don't find a need to do that. So I'm going to leave it at MPEG or MP4 and then go up to render animation. Okay, the render has finished. Now to view the render, we can exit out of that window, go up to render, and then click on view animation. And this window will pop up and we'll be able to see what our animation looks like. Okay, so now let's do the transition from the 3D text over to just the flat text. So what we're going to do is go to a new collection. So go ahead and right click, go to new collection, and then we'll call this collection flat text. There we go. Let's go ahead and click 2 on our keyboard to go to layer 2, our collection 2, and then I'll press Shift C to snap my cursor to the center. Press Shift A and then add in some text. This text is going to be the exact same text that we added, so rotate it 90 degrees, then type in Blender all caps. Over in the object data panel, let's give this the same font, so font regular, it should just be in this drop down menu, and we can give this the same material that we gave the other text. So go over to the material tab, click on this drop down menu and select the orange material. Next, select your text and then Shift D it and then bring it down. Scale it down, and this is going to be the subtitle. So go into edit mode and you can type in whatever you want. I think I'll just go with my name, Blender Made Easy, just like this. And I'll also give this a different font. So go over to the object data panel, underneath the font section, I'll just pick a random font. I think this one will look good. It doesn't need to be, it can be the same one, but it doesn't have to be. I think it looks a little bit better if it's a different font. Now with this font, what I'll do is over in the alignment and the paragraph, I'll set the spacing of the letters. I'll drag this up just slightly so they're a little bit further apart, and then I'll scale the whole thing down. Go into front view and then place this right underneath your main text. So right about there looks pretty good. And then this has the same material, so we don't need to change that. Next, if we go back to layer 1, so holding Shift, I'm going to go Shift 1 to bring back everything in the scene. I'm going to select our 3D text and hide that in the viewport. So I'll hide it here, and then I'll hide it in the render as well. Select your plane, Shift D it, and drag it backwards, and then scale it up even more. This is going to be the background, because if we zoom in here, you'll notice that the text is actually casting a shadow. I don't want it to cast any shadows, so I'm going to Shift D the plane, drag it back, select the smaller plane, and then also hide it from the viewport and hide it in the render. Now if we go into camera view, you'll notice that it doesn't show a shadow, it just shows the text and nothing else. The next thing I'll do is come down here underneath the start. I'm going to set this to 300. So we're only going to be rendering 100 frames of the flat text. And if we play this, you'll notice that the camera's going backwards, it's showing the text, and it's very easy to align this later once we composite everything together. The reason why we're adding in text this way rather than doing it in the post process is because the camera motion. If we were to try to scale the camera, or scale the text and try to position it accordingly, it'll just get annoying and it won't be perfect. Doing it this way makes sure that the text is lined up exactly where the 3D text is, and that's what we want. So now that we've done that, we've set the end frame, we can go ahead and render a new animation, and then we'll composite it once it's finished. So go over to the output settings, click on this menu, and then we'll call this flat text. There we go, and then enter. And so once the animation finishes, it'll be in this folder and it'll be called flat text. So now that we've done that, go up to render and then render animation one more time. Okay, our second animation has finished. Let's go ahead and start compositing all of our animations together. So go ahead and close that and then come over to this tab and click on video editing and then video editing. And this will bring us to a new window which has a preview here, a timeline, and now we can start importing our animations. So let's go ahead and do that. Go to Add, go to Movie, and then navigate to where those two movie files are. Click on both of them, and then go Add Movie Strip. And we can see our animation right here. We also need to set the timeline back, so hit the start frame all the way to 1. We'll select this first strip right here and drag it all the way to frame 1. It'll go a little bit slow, right about there. Then drag this frame or this strip all the way to the end right here. So at frame 300, it's going to go from this frame all the way to here. Now we're going to be doing a quick transition effect. So to add a transition, we're going to go to the start of this strip. Now an easy way to do that is hit the page up on your keyboard, and your cursor right here will snap to the beginning of that strip. So if I hit page up, boom, it snaps to right there. Over on the right side, we have the opacity. I'm going to be setting this to 0. Then hit the I key on that value right here. We're going to be animating this opacity value. Next, let's go to frame 3. Let's go to 340. So over here, we'll type in 340 and then enter. And we're going to be setting the opacity all the way up to 1. Then hit the I key one more time. So over 40 frames, it's going to go slowly transition, and there we go, we can see the effect. Now that's looking pretty cool. One more thing that I'll do is add a fade in and a fade out effect. To do that, I'm going to bring my cursor all the way to the beginning of the timeline, then go Add, Color. And this is just going to be a blank black color, and you can come over here and change the color if you want to, but I'm going to leave it at black. Now since we're on frame 1, I'm going to come over to the opacity and hit the I key. Next, hit page up on your keyboard and it will snap to the end. And I'm going to drag this down all the way to 0 and then hit the I key again. So over the course of this timeline, it's going to go from black, and then it's going to bring in our animation. As we can see there, it's a blackout fade in effect. So now let's do that same thing for the end. So come over here and hit this button to snap our cursor to the end. Then go Add, Color. And let's actually drag this to the side. So I'll press G and then I'll move it over to the side. Hit the page down button on your keyboard and your cursor will snap to the beginning of this color right here. We're going to be setting the opacity to 0. Hit the I key, then go to the end of the animation, drag this all the way up, and then hit the I key one more time. So if we play this animation, we can see the effect. It brings those in, and then it fades to black right there. And that looks pretty cool. Okay, we are done with the sequencing. Let's go ahead and render this out. I'm going to set an output, and I'm just going to call it final, and then enter. Now, if we go up to render and click on render animation, it will grab all of those frames and all of those sequencing that we just created and then render it into a movie file. So once this is done, we'll take a look at it, and that will be the end of the tutorial. Okay, the render has finished, and this is our result. I think it looks pretty good. We can see here that the camera zooms out. Once it reaches there, the flat text will come up. And there we go. Normally there is a glare that pops up on the bottom of the subtitle on the Marvel logo, but you can go ahead and do that on your own. This is already a pretty long tutorial. I'll show my final scene that I created right here. And as you can see, what I did is I used Premiere Pro to animate the glare and the text at the bottom, and it looks pretty good. You can do the glare in Blender, but it's a lot harder. If you want a tutorial on that, go ahead and leave a comment down below. But that's going to be it, so thank you for watching. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe for more Blender tutorials, and I'll see you guys in the next one.